Commander Jake Morrison stood at the observation deck of Harmony Station, watching the twin suns of Kepler 442 cast their golden light across the diplomatic complex. His weathered hands gripped the railing as he prepared for what would be the most difficult conversation of his military career. Behind him, soft footsteps approached on the polished floor. "You summoned us, husband?" The melodic voice belonged to Zara, his Valterian wife. Her blue-scaled skin shimmered in the artificial light, and her forearms moved with the graceful precision that had first captured his attention during the peace negotiations 3 years ago. "Jake, your emotional resonance feels disturbed," added Lysa, his Mindari spouse. Her telepathic abilities made it impossible to hide anything from her, though she had always respected his privacy. Her silver hair floated around her head as if suspended in water, and her large violet eyes showed genuine concern. Jake turned to face the two beings who had become his world. When he first arrived as Earth's military liaison to the Tri-Species Alliance, he never imagined he would fall in love, let alone with representatives from 2 different alien species. Yet here he was, 3 years later, married to both under the complex polyamorous customs that governed interspecies diplomatic unions. "We need to talk," Jake said, his voice carrying the weight of command that had served him through countless battles. "Both of you, please sit." Zara's secondary arms gestured concern while her primary hands smoothed her ceremonial robes. "This sounds serious, my dear one." Lysa's telepathic touch brushed against his mind, seeking permission to read his thoughts. Jake nodded slightly, allowing her limited access. Her face paled to an almost translucent silver as she gasped. "The deployment?" she whispered. "Earth is sending you away." Jake nodded grimly. "Admiral Chen delivered the orders this morning. I'm being reassigned to lead the human expedition to the Outer Rim. The harvesters have been spotted near human colonies, and they want someone with experience in interspecies relations." The silence stretched between them. Zara's 4 arms crossed in the Valterian gesture of deep contemplation, while Lysa's telepathic field flickered with emotions too complex for human understanding. "How long?" Zara asked finally. "Minimum 5 years. Possibly longer if we encounter significant resistance." Jake's military training kept his voice steady, but his heart was breaking. "The mission is classified beyond what I can share, but it's dangerous. There's a real possibility I might not come back." Lisa stood abruptly, her silver hair writhing with agitation. "Then we come with you. The Mindari Council has diplomatic observers throughout the galaxy. I can request assignment to your fleet." "And the Valterian Navy has ships in that sector," Zara added, her scaled features set with determination. "I still hold my commission as a strategic advisor. We face this together as we promised in our bonding ceremony." Jake felt his heart swell with love for these incredible women, but he shook his head. "It's not that simple. This isn't a diplomatic mission. It's a military campaign against an enemy we barely understand. The harvesters don't negotiate, they don't take prisoners, and they don't recognize any authority but strength. Where I'm going, there won't be room for the kind of careful interspecies cooperation we've built here." He moved to the central display and activated a holographic map of the Outer Rim. Red indicators marked the last known positions of harvester fleets, while blue dots showed vulnerable human colonies scattered across dozens of systems. "Look at these positions," Jake continued, pointing to the tactical display. "The harvesters are moving in a pattern that suggests they're not just raiding for resources. They're systematically targeting worlds with mixed populations, places where humans, Valterians, and Mindari have built communities together. Our intelligence suggests they see our alliance as a threat to their expansion." Zara studied the display with her tactical training evident in her focused attention. "Their attack vectors suggest a coordinated strategy. This is not random piracy." "Exactly, and that's why I need you both to stay here." Jake turned back to face them, his expression serious. What we've built on Harmony Station? The relationships between our species, the cultural exchange programs, the joint research projects, all of that is more important than any military campaign. If something happens to me out there, someone needs to continue the work we started. Lysa's telepathic touch became more insistent, seeking deeper access to his thoughts. There is something you are not telling us. I can sense the shape of it. But you have walls I cannot breach. Jake had learned to compartmentalize his thoughts during his marriage to a telepath, but Lisa knew him too well. He sighed and activated a privacy field around their section of the observation deck. Admiral Chen didn't just give me command of the expedition, he admitted. She also gave me a backup assignment. If the military situation becomes hopeless, I'm to make contact with a specific individual, someone who might be able to continue the diplomatic work if I can't return. Who? Zara asked, her secondary arms now gesturing suspicion. Lieutenant Colonel David Park. He's currently serving on Earth, but he's been selected for rapid promotion to the Outer Rim command structure. More importantly, he's one of the few humans who has shown genuine aptitude for interspecies relationship management. His psychological profile suggests he could adapt to the kind of complex emotional dynamics that our marriage represents. The implications hung in the air between them. Lisa's telepathic field flared with shock, while Zara's scales shifted to a deeper blue, a sign of intense emotional processing. You are asking us to consider bonding with another human if you do not return, Zara said slowly. I'm asking you to keep an open mind, Jake replied. Both of your species have customs that allow for the transfer of marriage bonds in cases of death or permanent separation. It's not common, but it's recognized under alliance law. Lysa moved closer, her violet eyes searching his face. This Colonel Park, you have met him? We served together during the Centauri crisis. He's a good man, Lysa. More than that, he understands that the future of human-alien relations depends on more than just trade agreements and military treaties. He knows it requires personal connections, emotional bonds that go deeper than politics. Jake pulled up another holographic display, this one showing personnel files. Colonel Park's image appeared, a man in his early 30s with calm, intelligent eyes and the bearing of someone comfortable with responsibility. He's currently unmarried, though his file shows several successful long-term relationships with both humans and the Centauri delegation members. His psychological evaluation indicates high empathy, cultural adaptability, and what the analysts call exceptional emotional intelligence in cross-species contexts. Zara studied the image carefully. His facial structure suggests honesty, and his posture indicates military discipline without rigidity, but these are surface observations. I know it's a lot to ask, Jake said. I'm not asking you to make any decisions now. I'm just asking you to consider the possibility that if something happens to me, there might be someone who could continue what we've built together. Lysa's telepathic touch became gentler, more exploratory. You truly believe this man could understand our bond? The complexity of loving both of us, of balancing Valtarian emotional directness with Mindari mental intimacy? I think he could learn with the right teachers. Jake smiled softly, looking between his wives. Both of you taught me how to love across species boundaries. You showed me that emotional connection transcends physical form or cultural background. If you were willing to guide him the way you guided me. The conversation was interrupted by a soft chime from Jake's communication device. He glanced at it and saw a priority message from Fleet Command. My transport leaves in 6 hours, he said quietly. I wanted to have this conversation now, while we still have time to process it together. Zara's 4 arms moved in a complex gesture that combined Valtarian expressions of love, concern, and determination. We will not simply accept that you might not return, husband. We will hope and work for your safe homecoming. But we will also consider what you have asked, Lisa added, her telepathic field calming to a steady, thoughtful rhythm. The bond between us is too precious to let it die with you, should the worst happen. Jake felt a wave of relief and gratitude. This was why he loved them both so deeply, their ability to face difficult realities while maintaining hope, their willingness to think beyond immediate emotional reactions to consider larger implications. "There's something else," he said. "I've prepared detailed personal files about both of you, your preferences, your cultural backgrounds, your individual needs and desires. If the situation arises, Colonel Park will have access to information that should help him understand how to approach you appropriately." "You have been planning this for some time," Zara observed. "Since I received the preliminary briefing about possible Outer Rim deployment, yes. It's my responsibility as your husband to ensure your well-being, even if I can't be here to provide it personally." Lisa moved closer and placed her hand on his arm. Through the telepathic connection, he felt her love and understanding, mixed with sadness and fear, but also a kind of pride in his forethought and care. "Show us these files," she said. "We should know what you believe this potential new husband would need to understand about us." Jake activated another section of the holographic display. Detailed profiles appeared, but these were unlike standard military personnel files. They contained information about Zara's preference for morning meditation in natural light, her complex dietary requirements as a Valtarian, and her need for physical activities that engaged all four of her arms. Lisa's profile included information about her telepathic cycle, the way her abilities fluctuated with her emotional state, and her deep need for intellectual stimulation and philosophical discussion. "You have been very thorough," Zara said, a note of admiration in her melodic voice. "But also very personal," Lisa added. "These details, they are things only a devoted husband would notice and remember." "That's exactly why I documented them," Jake replied. "Anyone can learn about Valtarian biology or Mindari telepathy from textbooks. But knowing that Zara hums ancient war songs when she's nervous, or that Lisa's telepathic field turns golden when she's truly happy, those are the details that make the difference between a political arrangement and a real marriage." The three of them spent the next several hours reviewing the files, with Zara and Lisa adding their own insights and corrections. It was a strange kind of intimacy, documenting the shape of their relationship for someone else to potentially inherit. As the suns of Kepler 442 began to set outside the observation deck, Jake realized that this conversation had accomplished something unexpected. Instead of feeling like he was preparing for his potential death, he felt like he was creating a legacy, a way for the love and understanding they had built together to continue and grow, even without him. "I need to report to the transport bay soon," Jake said finally. Zara stood and moved to him, all four of her arms embracing him in the traditional Valtarian farewell for dangerous journeys. "You carry our hearts with you, beloved husband. Fight well, but remember that your greatest victory would be returning to us." Lisa joined the embrace, her telepathic field surrounding all three of them with a warm, golden glow. Through the mental connection, Jake felt her downloading copies of their shared memories, every moment of joy, every challenge they had overcome together, every small daily intimacy that had built their marriage. "These memories will remain clear in my mind," she said. "If the need arises, I will be able to share with another what it has meant to be loved by you." As they held each other in the fading light of the twin suns, Jake realized that this was perhaps the most human thing he had ever done, planning for a future he might not see, ensuring that love and connection would survive even in the face of uncertainty and loss. The future remained unknown, but their bond had already proven strong enough to bridge the gaps between species. Now it would have to prove strong enough to bridge time and distance as well. 18 months later. Colonel David Park stood in the communications center of the battleship UES Determination, staring at the holographic message that had just arrived through the quantum relay network. The words seemed to burn in the air before him, each one carrying weight he wasn't sure he was prepared to bear. Colonel Morrison's last transmission was received 4 days ago. Admiral Chen's image flickered slightly due to the long-distance connection. His task force encountered a harvester fleet 3 times larger than intelligence predicted. The engagement lasted 14 hours. Only 2 ships escaped to report the outcome. David's hands clenched into fists at his sides. He had known Jake Morrison for 8 years, had served under his command during some of the most challenging diplomatic missions in human history. The man was a legend in the Interspecies Relations Corps, but more than that, he had become a mentor and friend. "What are your orders, Admiral?" David asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "You are to proceed immediately to Harmony Station. Commander Morrison left specific instructions regarding his personal affairs. His wives have been notified of his status, but they have requested that any transition discussions wait until you arrive in person." The connection ended, leaving David alone with the magnitude of what lay ahead. He had read Morrison's classified files during the flight to the Outer Rim. The detailed documentation about his marriage to Zara and Lisa had been part of David's briefing materials, presented as a case study in successful interspecies relationship management. He had never imagined he would be expected to step into that role personally. 3 days later, David's shuttle approached Harmony Station. The massive structure hung in space like a jewel, its bioluminescent sections pulsing with the steady rhythm that indicated all 3 species were present and active aboard. Valterian crystal growths extended from one section, while Mindari meditation chambers glowed with soft telepathic energy. Human engineering tied it all together with practical efficiency. As his shuttle docked, David felt a familiar tightness in his chest. The same sensation he had experienced before every major diplomatic encounter. This was different, though. This wasn't about trade negotiations or military alliances. This was about 2 grieving women who had lost the man they loved, and the possibility that he might somehow help them carry on. The airlock opened to reveal a welcoming committee of 1, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Torres, Morrison's former aide. Her expression was professionally neutral, but David could see the strain around her eyes. "Colonel Park, welcome to Harmony Station. I've been coordinating with Mrs. Morrison and Mrs. Morrison regarding your arrival." David noticed the careful use of titles. In interspecies marriages, both wives typically took the human husband's surname, though they maintained their original names for official purposes within their own cultures. "How are they handling the situation?" David asked as they walked through the station's central corridor. "As well as can be expected. Mrs. Zara Morrison has thrown herself into her strategic analysis work, trying to find patterns in the harvester attacks that might help other task forces avoid Jake's fate. Mrs. Lisa Morrison has been providing telepathic counseling to other war widows throughout the station. They're coping by helping others." That sounded exactly like what David would have expected from Morrison's files. Zara's response to stress was to focus on problem-solving and tactical analysis. Lisa's healing nature would naturally lead her to care for others experiencing similar losses. They stopped at the entrance to the Morrison family quarters. David had never seen the personal living space of an interspecies marriage before. The door itself was a work of art. Human engineering combined with Valterian crystal formation and Mindari energy patterns. "They're waiting for you," Torres said. "Colonel Morrison left detailed instructions about this meeting. I'll be in the adjacent office if you need anything." David took a deep breath and pressed the door chime. The response came immediately. A melodic voice speaking in accented standard. "Please enter, Colonel Park." The door slid open to reveal a living space that was both alien and oddly comfortable. Valtarian comfort platforms were arranged near large windows overlooking the star field, while Mindari meditation crystals provided soft lighting throughout the space. Human furniture filled the gaps, creating conversation areas that could accommodate all three species comfortably. Zara Morrison stood near the main window, her blue-scaled skin seeming to absorb and reflect the starlight. Her 4 arms were crossed in a formal Valtarian greeting posture, but David could see the tension in her secondary shoulders. Lisa Morrison emerged from what appeared to be a meditation alcove, her silver hair floating gently around her head. Her large violet eyes studied David with the intense focus that indicated active telepathic observation. "Colonel Park," Zara said, her melodic voice carefully controlled, "thank you for coming so quickly." "I'm sorry for your loss," David replied, falling back on human diplomatic training. "Commander Morrison spoke of you both often during our missions together. He loved you deeply." Lisa stepped closer, her telepathic field reaching out tentatively. "May I?" she asked, gesturing toward her temple. David nodded, understanding that she wanted to read his emotional state. He had worked with Mindari telepaths before and knew that allowing the contact would demonstrate trust and openness. Lisa's mental touch was gentle but thorough. He felt her exploring the edges of his grief for Morrison, his uncertainty about this situation, and his genuine desire to help however he could. After a moment, she stepped back. "He was not exaggerating when he described you," she said to Zara. "This one's emotional resonance is remarkably stable for someone in such an unusual situation." "Please sit," Zara said, gesturing toward the central conversation area. "We have much to discuss and very little time to make important decisions." David settled onto a human-style chair that had been modified with Valtarian cushioning and Mindari energy-focusing crystals built into the armrests. The attention to detail in combining 3 species' comfort requirements was remarkable. "Jake told us about his conversation with you before he left," Lisa said directly. "About the possibility of continuing our bond with another if he did not return." David had been dreading this conversation. "He did brief me on the situation, yes, but I want you both to know that I'm not here to pressure you into anything. If you prefer to mourn Jake and eventually find your own paths forward, I completely understand." Zara's primary arms gestured appreciation for his directness. "Jake chose well when he recommended you. However, there are complications he could not have foreseen." "What kind of complications?" Lisa activated a holographic display that showed the current political situation across the Alliance. Red indicators marked growing tensions between various factions, while yellow warnings showed diplomatic crises developing on multiple fronts. The Harvester attacks have created a crisis of confidence in human military leadership, Lisa explained. Some Valtarian and Mindari council members are beginning to question whether the alliance with Earth is worth the cost. Zara picked up the explanation. "Interspecies marriages like ours have become symbols of the alliance itself. Jake's loss is being seen by some as evidence that humans cannot protect their alien partners, even those they claim to love most." David began to understand the larger implications. "So this isn't just about your personal situation. It's about the political ramifications of a highly visible interspecies marriage ending in tragedy." "Exactly," Lisa confirmed. "If we simply dissolve our marriage and return to our home worlds, it will be seen as proof that human-alien relationships cannot survive real challenges. But if we bond with another human, it demonstrates continuity and commitment," David finished. "It shows that the relationship was about more than just one individual." "There is another factor," Zara added, her voice becoming more serious. "Jake's last message included intelligence about the Harvesters that he could only transmit to his legal next of kin. As his wives, we have access to classified information that could be crucial to the war effort." David's military training immediately grasped the significance. Information that you can only share with someone who has the appropriate clearance and legal standing. A husband would have that standing, Lisa said quietly. A friend or colleague would not. The weight of responsibility settled on David's shoulders like a familiar burden. This wasn't just about personal relationships or political symbolism. Lives hung in the balance, possibly the entire outcome of the war against the Harvesters. What did Jake's final message contain? He asked. Zara and Lisa exchanged glances before Lisa activated a privacy field around their seating area. The Harvesters are not what we believed them to be, she said. They are not a naturally aggressive species seeking conquest. According to Jake's intelligence, they are refugees, Zara continued. Their home galaxy is being consumed by something they call the Void Hunters. The Harvesters are strip-mining worlds not for conquest, but to build evacuation ships for their entire civilization. David felt the implications hit him like a physical blow. If that's true, then we're fighting a desperate enemy, not aggressive conquerors. Their tactics would be completely different. Exactly. And Jake believed there might be a possibility for negotiation if we could approach them correctly. But any diplomatic contact would require someone with interspecies relationship experience. Someone who understands how to build trust across species boundaries, Lisa added. Someone who has demonstrated the ability to commit to aliens personally, not just professionally. David stood and walked to the large window, looking out at the stars where Harvester fleets were even now attacking human colonies. The military solution hadn't worked. Jake's death proved that. But a diplomatic approach would require exactly the kind of credibility that an interspecies marriage provided. You're asking me to marry you both, he said quietly. We are asking you to consider it, Zara replied. Not because Jake requested it, and not because we need protection or support. We are asking because the situation requires it. David turned back to face them. And how do you both feel about that? Putting aside the politics and the military implications, how do you feel about the possibility of bonding with someone you barely know? Lisa's telepathic field fluttered with complex emotions. Jake shared many memories of you through our bond before he left. I know your character, your values, your approach to challenges. In some ways, I know you better than most couples know each other before they marry. And Jake's judgment in people was exceptional, Zara added. If he believed you could understand our needs and care for us properly, that recommendation carries significant weight. But, David prompted, sensing there was more. But we would need to be honest about the nature of the relationship, Lisa said. At least initially, this would be a partnership of necessity, not love. Love might grow over time, as it sometimes does in arranged marriages, but we cannot pretend it exists from the beginning. David appreciated their directness. I understand, and I want you to know that I have great respect for what you shared with Jake. I wouldn't try to replace him or pretend that what we might build would be the same as what you had with him. Zara's scales shifted to a lighter blue, indicating a more positive emotional state. That is exactly what we hoped you would say. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. Lisa activated the communication display, and Admiral Chen's image appeared. Mrs. Morrison, Colonel Park. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have an urgent situation. 3 more human colonies have been hit by Harvester fleets in the last 6 hours. The Senate is meeting in emergency session to discuss potential surrender terms. David felt his heart sink. Surrender? We've been fighting for less than 2 years. The casualties have been catastrophic, Colonel. We've lost 60% of our Outer Rim fleet strength, and the Harvesters show no signs of slowing down. Some senators believe negotiation is our only option. Admiral, Zara interjected, what if we told you there was intelligence suggesting negotiation might actually be possible? Chen's expression sharpened with interest. What kind of intelligence? David made his decision in that moment. Some choices couldn't wait for careful consideration or proper procedures. Admiral, I need to request emergency marriage authorization for myself and the two Mrs. Morrisons. There's classified intelligence that requires immediate family status to access, and it could change the entire nature of our conflict with the Harvesters. The Admiral's eyebrows rose, but her expression remained professional. That's highly irregular, Colonel. These are irregular times, ma'am. How quickly can the authorization be processed? For a matter of galactic security, I can have the papers ready within the hour, but, Colonel, I hope you understand the magnitude of what you're requesting. David looked at Zara and Lisa, seeing determination and hope in their alien features. I understand completely, Admiral. Some responsibilities are too important to decline regardless of personal cost. As the communication ended, David realized that in the space of a single conversation, his entire life had changed direction. He was about to become the husband of two alien women he barely knew, inherit a war that was going badly, and attempt a diplomatic solution that might be humanity's only hope for survival. But looking at Zara and Lisa, seeing the strength and intelligence that had captivated Jake Morrison, David felt something unexpected. Not fear or reluctance, but anticipation. This was the kind of challenge that made life worth living, the chance to build something meaningful while facing impossible odds. So, he said with a slight smile, I suppose we should discuss wedding arrangements. 3 weeks after the emergency wedding ceremony, Colonel David Park stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel UES Understanding, watching a harvester fleet approach through hyperspace. His new wives flanked him, Zara monitoring tactical displays with her four-armed efficiency, while Lisa maintained telepathic contact with the mixed-species crew to coordinate their emotional states. The wedding had been unlike anything in galactic history. Conducted under emergency diplomatic protocols, it combined human, Valtarian, and Mindari traditions in a ceremony that lasted 6 hours and was broadcast to every Alliance world. David had expected it to feel strange or forced, but instead found himself moved by the gravity of the commitment they were all making. Harvester fleet dropping out of hyperspace in 30 seconds, reported the navigation officer, a young ensign whose voice betrayed his nervousness. All weapons powered down, David ordered. Communications array to full power. Zara, are you reading any aggressive posturing from their formation? His Valtarian wife studied the tactical display with professional focus. Their approach vector suggests caution rather than aggression. They are maintaining maximum distance while remaining within communication range. Lisa placed her hand on David's arm, her telepathic field extending to encompass the entire bridge crew. The crew's anxiety is manageable, but I recommend you address them before we begin contact protocols. David nodded and activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is the Colonel. In 30 minutes, we will attempt the first diplomatic contact with a harvester fleet in the history of this conflict. We are here because conventional military action has failed, and because we believe there is another way forward. Each of you was selected for this mission because you represent the best of Alliance cooperation. Today, we find out if that cooperation can extend to our enemies as well. The harvester ships materialized in space before them, massive organic-looking vessels that seemed to shift and flow like living creatures. There were 12 of them, arranged in a protective formation around what appeared to be a central command ship. Incoming transmission, the communications officer reported. It's unlike anything we've encountered before. The signal is carrying multiple data layers, visual, auditory, and something else. Telepathic harmonics, Lisa identified immediately. They communicate partially through mental resonance. I can attempt to interface with that layer of the signal. Do it, David approved. All stations, prepare for First Contact Protocol 7. The main screen flickered to life, revealing the interior of a harvester vessel. The being that appeared was unlike anything in Alliance databases. Tall and ethereal, with flowing appendages that might have been arms or sensory organs. Its skin seemed to shift between different colors, and its eyes held an intelligence that was both alien and undeniably aware. "I am Fleet Singer Kelthara of the Third Exodus," the being spoke, its voice carrying harmonics that resonated strangely in the ship's atmosphere. "You are the ones called humans, and your companions of the crystal growth and the mind touch." David stepped forward, feeling the weight of the moment. "I am Colonel David Park of the Earth Alliance, commanding this diplomatic mission. With me are my wives, Zara of the Valtarian Strategic Corps and Lisa of the Mindari Telepathic Council." The Harvester's color patterns shifted rapidly, and Lisa gasped. "It's..." "Surprised," she reported. "The concept of interspecies marriage is causing significant emotional resonance." "You bond across the species divide?" Kelthara asked, its harmonics becoming more complex. "This is unexpected. Our intelligence suggested your peoples maintained strict separation." Zara moved to one of the tactical displays, calling up Jake's final intelligence packet. "Fleet Singer Kelthara, we believe there have been significant misunderstandings between our peoples. We recently learned that your fleets may not be conducting raids for conquest, but for survival." The Harvester's entire form seemed to shimmer with what might have been surprise or distress. "You know of the Void Hunters? How is this possible?" David felt his heart race. Jake's intelligence had been correct. "One of our commanders gathered information before his death in battle with your forces. We know your people are refugees from another galaxy, building evacuation ships to escape something that threatens your entire civilization." "The Void Hunters consume entire star systems," Kelthara confirmed, its color patterns shifting to what Lisa indicated was deep sadness. "They have already devoured 70% of our home galaxy. We came here seeking resources to build arc ships for the survivors of our people. And you've been attacking our colonies because you need the materials for your ships," David said, pieces of the puzzle falling into place. "But you didn't realize our species were capable of cooperation. We assumed you would never willingly share resources with invaders," Kelthara replied. "Our own species fought bitter wars for survival resources when the Void Hunters first appeared. We believed all species would react the same way." Zara's 4 arms moved in complex calculations as she processed the tactical implications. "How many survivors need evacuation? And what kind of timeline are we facing?" 3 billion of our people remain alive, scattered across 17 worlds. The Void Hunters will reach this galaxy in approximately 50 of your years." Lisa's telepathic field pulsed with shock. "David, I'm reading incredible pain from this being. The loss, the desperation. It's almost overwhelming." David felt a familiar sensation, the same certainty he had experienced when deciding to marry Zara and Lisa. Sometimes the right course of action was clear, regardless of how impossible it seemed. "Fleet Singer Kelthara, I want to propose something that may seem absurd to you. What if our species worked together to evacuate your people? The Alliance has industrial capacity across thousands of worlds. Working together, we might be able to build your arc ships much faster than you could manage through raids." The Harvester's form went completely still for several long moments. "You would help us? After we have killed thousands of your people?" "You were fighting for survival," David replied. "In the same situation, we might have done the same thing. But now we have the opportunity to find a better way forward." Zara brought up industrial capacity reports on her displays. "The numbers are actually viable. If we converted 30% of Alliance shipyards to arc ship construction, we could evacuate 3 billion Harvesters in 25 years. Well ahead of the Void Hunter arrival." "But why?" Kelthera asked, its color patterns now cycling through what Lisa identified as confusion and hope. "What do your people gain from helping us?" David smiled, thinking of Jake Morrison's belief that emotional connections could transcend species boundaries. "We gain allies. When the Void Hunters arrive, they'll face not just our 4 species, but yours as well. We gain knowledge. Your people have been fighting the Void Hunters for generations. Most importantly, we gain the knowledge that we did the right thing." Lisa stepped forward, her telepathic field reaching out tentatively. "May I share with you how we learned that cooperation between species is possible?" Kelthera's form shimmered with what might have been consent. Lisa's eyes began to glow with soft violet light as she established a telepathic link with the Harvester leader. Through the connection, David knew Lisa was sharing memories. Jake Morrison meeting Zara during the Valterian peace negotiations. The careful courtship that had bridged cultural and biological differences. The wedding ceremony that had united 3 species in celebration. She shared the way their marriage had become a symbol of alliance cooperation, and how David's willingness to continue that bond had prevented a political crisis that could have shattered the alliance. When the connection ended, Kelthera's color patterns had shifted to something that pulsed with warm, golden light. "I understand now," the Fleet Singer said. "Your species builds bonds not just of law or necessity, but of choice and care. This is remarkable." "It's what makes us human," David said simply. "We form connections across any barrier, species, culture, distance, even death. Jake Morrison loved Zara and Lisa enough to plan for their future without him. I loved him enough to honor that plan. And now, we have the chance to extend that same principle to your people." The Harvester leader was quiet for a long moment. "I must consult with the grand chorus of our people. But Colonel Park, I believe you have offered us something we never dared to hope for. Not just survival, but the possibility of belonging somewhere." "Every intelligent species belongs in this galaxy," David replied. "The question is whether we face its dangers together or separately." As the communication ended and the Harvester fleet withdrew to consider the proposal, David felt Zara's 4 arms embrace him from behind, while Lisa's telepathic field surrounded them both with warm satisfaction. "That was beautifully done, husband," Zara said, her melodic voice carrying pride and affection that had grown deeper over the past weeks. "Jake would be proud," Lisa added, her mental touch carrying echoes of their deceased husband's love and approval. David leaned back against his wives, marveling at how quickly they had become a real family unit rather than just a political arrangement. The love he felt for them was different from what Jake had experienced, built on shared purpose and growing understanding rather than the passionate discovery Jake had described in his files. But it was real, and it was enough to build a lifetime on. 6 months later, David stood in the same observation lounge where Jake Morrison had once prepared for what he thought would be his final goodbye. But instead of watching ships depart for war, David was watching the largest construction project in galactic history. The first joint human-Valterian Mindari Harvester shipyard was taking shape in orbit around Kepler 442. Harvester biotechnology merged seamlessly with human industrial efficiency, Valterian precision engineering, and Mindari energy-focusing techniques. The first ARC ship was already 60% complete, and 17 more were in various stages of construction across Alliance space. The Senate approved funding for the next phase of construction, Zara reported, reviewing the latest political developments. Her role had evolved from strategic advisor to chief coordinator of the entire project. "And the Harvester cultural integration programs are exceeding all expectations," Lisa added. She had become the Alliance's primary specialist in Harvester telepathic communication, working to help the former enemies understand each other. David watched a group of human and Harvester engineers working together on a construction platform, their different anatomies and approaches somehow complementing each other perfectly. Jake was right about connections transcending barriers. Who would have thought that the solution to the war would be 3 humans willing to commit to alien marriage bonds? 4 humans, Zara corrected gently. Jake's sacrifice made everything else possible. Lysa's telepathic field carried a sense of Jake's continued presence in their lives, not as a ghost or memory, but as a foundation that everything else had been built upon. He would say that this is what the bonds between species are supposed to create, not just personal happiness, but a better future for everyone. David nodded, thinking of the message he had recorded for the Alliance archives earlier that day. Historians would want to know how a desperate military situation had transformed into the largest cooperative endeavor in galactic history. The answer was surprisingly simple. Humans had a unique capacity to form emotional bonds that transcended self-interest, and those bonds could become the foundation for something much larger than personal relationships. "There's one more thing," David said, pulling up a holographic display that showed long-range sensor readings from the edge of the galaxy. "The Harvester's deep space monitoring stations have detected something interesting. It looks like the Void Hunters might not be entirely unstoppable after all." The display showed energy signatures that suggested massive battles in the distant galaxy where the Harvesters had originated. Some species there are still fighting, still resisting, and they're using some of the same cooperative techniques we've developed here. Zara's scales shifted to an excited blue. "You're suggesting we might be able to help them as well?" "When our Ark ship construction is complete and the Harvesters are safely evacuated, we'll have the most advanced fleet technology in known space," David said. "And we'll have proven that cooperation between very different species is not just possible, but incredibly powerful." Lysa's telepathic field sparkled with anticipation. A crusade not of conquest, but of connection, teaching other species how to build the bonds that make survival possible. David smiled, looking at his wives and thinking of the man whose love had made all of this possible. Jake Morrison had believed that emotional connections could change the galaxy. He had been right, but even he couldn't have imagined the scope of what those connections could ultimately achieve. In the end, the galaxy would be saved not by superior weapons or tactical brilliance, but by the most human trait of all, the willingness to love across any barrier, and to build a future on that love. It was the greatest gift one species could give to another, and David Park had learned it from the 2 remarkable women who had taught Jake Morrison the same lesson. As the twin suns set over the construction project that would save 3 billion lives, David realized that Jake's final gift to him hadn't been just his wives' love, but the understanding that love itself was humanity's greatest weapon in an uncertain universe.